Yep.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, great to meet you. I'm Allie. I'm been with Softvision for about 2.5 years now, and I'm the one focusing on everything that you'll hear regarding podification, the pod model, game of pods. And so that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, since your teams are part of this closed beta, and we're very excited to have you. So, since, and we have someone new joining, awesome. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Steve's PwC too, Allie, just FYI.
Perfect. Okay, so we can make this as tailored as you guys want, okay? So that we can make sure that you leave here with all your questions answered. So don't mind me in terms of potentially having a format that I'm following or anything like that. Just ask all your questions, guide me in the direction that you guys want to go as needed along the way, okay? So I just have a couple of slides just to help me with some talking points, but the idea is to spend most of our time inside the tool, navigating it. But since some of you might have already been hearing something about Game of Pods and maybe some of you haven't, I'll just kind of touch on the key points before we go into the tool. So just for visibility, this is a new platform. So if any of you had already been working with Recognize, is that the case, or are you guys brand new to this?
No, I'd seen Recognize before, but just logged in, used it, and then my login stopped working the next day.
And then got depressed about Recognize and came back out.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What about Jeff and Steve?
Yeah, pretty much the same story on my end. I logged in, took a look around, and didn't really go back.
Yeah, awesome. So that's the reason why we decided to build this tool internally. So initially, when the pod model has been around for 2 years now at Softvision, and various teams have been using it. Game of Pods is something that we launched last year in order to validate our assumptions. We needed to be able to do that without a huge investment initially, and that's why we decided to use a third-party SaaS tool. The reality is it's not exciting or thrilling. It's not the tool that will allow us to achieve what we want to, but it did the trick in terms of validating the direction in which we were going. And that's when we made the decision to actually start developing something internally. So I hope after this walkthrough, you will feel very differently about Game of Pods platform as you do about Recognize. So we'll see along the way what your impressions are. This is a closed beta, which means it's there's a select number of teams. We have about 20 accounts, about 10 accounts. I say about because some account might be joining a little bit later. And around 20 pods participating. And right now there is no access available for our clients, so we're using this internally. That doesn't mean that our clients cannot have visibility or information as needed, and we can provide that information at request, but it means that our clients do not access this tool at this point. The whole basis of Game of Pods is the pod model. And so I'll touch on just 2 key things that I want you to take away from the pod model. And hopefully you'll be discussing more with your teams and your managers around this. The first thing is just to familiarize yourself with just the nomenclature and what we call a pod. That understand that there's nothing that's going to change in terms of your development framework or your day-to-day process. This doesn't interfere with that in any way. That there are just mainly understanding what is at the core of the pod framework, and that is the measuring of KPIs, and we'll talk about that just a second. And then there's Game of Pods, which obviously has this platform as a vehicle to enable it. So in terms of a pod, I think for the most part at PwC, you guys are working in a pod model, and it doesn't really matter at this point whether you're touching on all of these points. What it does matter is that you're moving towards that, or you're keeping in mind how to evolve towards that in some shape or form. So ideally, our pods are including design and product capabilities. If they're not, then at least we have a product mindset as we are building or developing for our client. The more cross-functional our team is, the more capable it is of doing end-to-end development, and therefore the more power to the team. Obviously, we want the pods to be following agile best practices, whether that is looking at a just pure agile process, at automation, quality automation, or development best practices. The idea, obviously tied also to this agile mindset, is a continuous improvement mindset, and that's at the core of our pod model. So obviously collaboration and trust, but also always looking as to how can I improve, what can I change, how can I evolve, and not just cruise or stagnate over time. And at the core of the pod framework, we'll talk about one of the key elements, which are the KPIs. And so if you're, sorry, that's just an interim screen. If you're not measuring yet, and I do believe at PwC you have started measuring a few things, but at the end of the day, you have to select the KPIs as a team that are meaningful to you and your client for your specific project at that specific point in time. So your client will have a very clear business goal that you should be aware of, and your KPIs should be linked to that, helping achieve that business goal. The only thing that we ask is that you track in these 4 dimensions. So velocity, think of it as a broader concept in terms of productivity. It doesn't necessarily mean just the number of story points or the number of PBIs completed. There are different focuses like predictability or responsiveness that can be crucial. Quality, I'm sure you're measuring in some shape or form. Again, there are a number of variations of how to measure that. Product impact and autonomy means how are we impacting our client's business, and autonomy is how are we not creating unnecessary overhead. So it's important to understand these 4 categories. We don't determine what you're going to track. Like I said, you determine that yourself. You determine what your targets are going to be. But we ask that you focus on these 4 categories. And there is, these are just some examples. These are not necessarily mandated as to what you need to track. They're also not exhaustive. We do have a repository if you need some ideas to trigger conversations within your team. But the idea is that you come up with your own set of metrics that make sense, that add value, and that you and your client believe in. So far, any questions? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the platform for a second. What you'll see is we've got big plans and a big vision for the Game of Pods platform. You're kind of jumping in at very early stages. This is our first, I wouldn't say it's not our first release, but it is our first release to the public. So you're coming in at a true beta stage, which means you will encounter some issues, but it also means that you're coming in to kind of that first set of key focus for the tool. But we have a lot more in the pipeline as well. Your feedback and your experience in this tool is going to help us do 2 things. One is validate that what we've built is making sense. It's from a usability perspective, is it working? Is it not working? Where are you encountering issues? And number 2, if what we have in the pipeline for upcoming features based on your feedback is making sense, or we need to make some adjustments. So the feedback is super valuable along the way. In this vision, we understand that as individuals, we live kind of in two different or 2 parallel worlds, as we call them. One is us as individuals, and the other one is us as part of a team, or as we call them, pods. So the tool today is focusing on that pod side of things. Eventually, it will focus on our individual growth and will be linked to our kind of personal goals and what we want to achieve. But right now, the focus is on the pod and how that pod evolves or matures over time. And in that concept, at the center of the life of the pod is what we're calling the maturity path. The maturity path is what is showing how we as a team, through our output and our best practices, are evolving over time. And how do we quantify that? Well, through badges and trophies that we can request and earn along the way. Think of the badges as a more tactical approach for best practices that we apply, usually within the iteration, or it can be over a couple of iterations, but I'll tell you in a minute more about that. And the trophies, think of them as milestones that we are achieving, and therefore they're a little bit more strategic. Those trophies are going to be, for the most part, related to the KPIs that we are tracking. That's why I was emphasizing that it is really important that you guys are measuring things that matter to you and your client. You'll be able to baseline, you'll be able to set your targets, and the trophies are going to be directly related to those KPIs and those targets that you set. How will you be able to do this? Well, you'll be able to set goals both at a tactical level and a strategic level for the trophies, which means that within your iteration, you can plan for what it is that you want to improve or what practice you want to apply. So let's say right now you're looking to start applying unit testing because that's something that you're not doing or you're doing very poorly, and that could be something that you target within your sprint. So at the beginning of the sprint, and whatever planning activity you have, you could very easily set 5 minutes aside to say, okay, what is it that we're going to focus on? What improvement are we going to focus on this iteration? We all agree that we want to do unit testing, and you can target within that goal the badges that are related to unit testing, and within the iteration, work on that, see where you are at the end of that iteration, review in your retrospective, and decide whether you believe that you've achieved that goal or not. Maybe you need more than one iteration. That's okay too. You set the time frame. So it's a very easy process to figure out, and I'll show you in the tool how to do this. The strategic goals, we expect that it's normal for them to be a bit longer, last a few iterations, but you'll also be able to say, okay, for these 4 dimensions, I'm going to target increasing my productivity, whatever metrics I decided, by X%, and that's going to be my target, and my goal is to achieve that trophy over X period of time. This is the activity that you will be able to see and do in the tool. Some features that will be coming up a little bit later on, and whilst you're in the beta, we will be releasing features as well, is the ability to track those KPIs inside the tool. Right now, this is under development. There'll be some things coming up in terms of quests, giving you some guidance on what badges you can collect, etc. And once this closed beta is over, we will be moving to what we're calling an open beta, which will start including some select clients to participate, but there's no need to worry about that just yet. Again, interrupt me at any point with questions, or if I'm not making sense, or I'm going too fast or too slow, just let me know. Before we go into the tool, I'll just make one clarification in terms of the types of awards that you will see in the tool. You need to think of them as in two different levels. One is the collective awards, and they are for the pod. They are recognizing the output of the pod. And the other one is individual awards, and these are awards that you earn, or we all earn as individuals. The collective awards, you'll see there are pod badges and pod trophies. The way that this works is that anyone on the team can request them on behalf of their team, and the podification team will receive that request within the tool, will review that request, and then will award to the pod as needed. The action for this looks like this within the tool, and you'll find it in various different places. The individual awards, as I mentioned, they're personal awards. There's 2 categories right now, the personal badges and the peer-to-peer badges. The peer-to-peer badges are aligned with our core values. You'll find 6 Cognizant values, 6 Softvision values Right now, we still have them, all 12 of them as Cognizant Softvision. And the personal badges are related to various different things. Anything from what do I as an individual kind of bring to the project in terms of maybe more social type things, or how do I make the project better, not just focusing on the output, and then things that I do above and beyond the project that are also recognized in there. Anyone in the program can send a badge to anyone else in the program, regardless of whether they're on your team or not. There's no validation, there's no confirmation. That's a direct interaction between two members within the program. The action for this looks like this within the tool. All right, so let me then move this out of the way. It's driving me nuts. Okay, I'll log out just to kind of show you your landing page. You should have received an email with your login credentials. If you received more than one, please look at the last email that you received. That is your ultimate and final username and password. You'll be able to log in with that, and you will access this landing page that right now is missing a lazy loader. Awesome. Okay, so that is taking a lot longer than expected. Very soon you will find that that's gone, but you will land here in this page and you'll see a couple of things. Up here you will see the information related to your pod. What you're seeing here is your pod's avatar, the name, how many members it has, what level this pod is at. This is under development, so you'll, as of tomorrow, you won't see it here, but you'll be able to see how your pod is ranked in terms of the entire program, how many points it has, 380, and what are the latest awards that it's received. That is your pod section. Should you belong to more than one pod, you will be able to see both pods. You'll just click and it will update the information here for each of your pods. This is your personal block. So in this case, I'm logged in as Carter. Carter has 165 points. This is his motto, and these are the latest awards that Carter has. As you can see, you're here seeing pod badges and pod trophies, and for the individual, you're seeing personal badges and peer-to-peer badges. This area here in the middle is the feed, and it's showing you everything that is going on in the program. What you will see is two different formats. If you are following someone, whether it's a pod or a person, you will see a more detailed description of the activity for that person or that pod. If you're not following them, then you can still see what's going on, but the format is very summarized. You can always click and get more detail, but you will see it in a summarized version. Anytime you mouse over a badge, you'll be able to see right there what that badge is for. You will also have access to send that award from that same place. You will also see for this user that actually doesn't have his avatar yet updated, but you can see their information and where they stand. Same thing, let me see if I have a pod here in this activity. No, we don't have any pods that have, okay. You'll be able to see the same information for the pod, but for any member, you can just mouse over. So JP has a little bit more data here. You can see how he's updated his data, and you can also send him an award directly from here. And again, the badges, you can see what the badge is for, the description, the title, the number of experience points, and any tags related to that. A feature that you will soon see as you're participating in the beta is the ability to leave comments. That's coming soon, so just sit tight. And anywhere in the tool where you see this icon, this is the follow icon. So anytime you click on that or unclick, you will be following or unfollowing a specific pod or a specific person. What that will do is simply change the format of the data that you see here in the feed. All right, You can go and view the data for your pod or for any pod for that matter. And what you will see here is what we said was at the core of the life of the pod. So you're still seeing kind of the basic information. You're seeing the avatar, the name, and you're seeing the mission statement. If it is your pod, you'll be able to edit that. Okay, you'll be able to edit, and you'll also be able to modify any members that are part of that pod. You can add members, but only members that have been added to the system already. So if you have to add someone new that is not in the tool, you will have to request it to us for the moment because we've left that as an admin feature. But if you have 2 pods already in the system and someone's moving from one pod to another, or you want to share resources across 2 pods, you can manage that yourself. Here you see the maturity path. Now the maturity path, we said, is the collection of all the badges and trophies that this pod has earned. So basically this pod earned 10 points with this badge and moved up to here, then earned another 50 with this other badge, then earned 300 with a trophy, 10 and 10. This pod is making its way all the way up to novice level. And this pod actually has a strategic goal that it's targeting. This goal is for this specific trophy, and it's going to earn them 300 points. So if they do achieve that goal, this is where they're going to land after they get that badge, that trophy in this case, awarded. So now they know that they're right here. They've got a target now. Their next step is to earn that trophy, and that trophy will get them leveled up. As you can see, if the easiest way to level up is really by measuring your KPIs and being able to improve the output of the pod. Obviously, badges also, there are 10, anywhere from 5 to 50 points badges, so that is also a great way to move forward, but obviously the trophies give you an accelerated number. You can see here the badges every time you are requesting a badge. So if you're part of the pod, you'll be able to request a badge on behalf of the pod. In this case, it's already identifying that I'm requesting it for this pod. I simply start typing and I'll see all the list of awards that are available. So I can select any award, and I will have to justify why it is that I'm requesting that award and give visibility that my team knows that I'm requesting this award on their behalf, right? So this is a consented approach where anyone can request, but just make sure that you are communicating so that you don't have 5 people requesting the same award or someone requesting an award without the team's knowledge. The better you justify in here why you're requesting this award, the easier it will be for the podification team to actually award it. So I'm just going to put acceptance test standards, whatever. Be a bit more descriptive than this, please, when you're sending the award. But you're able to request this award. So once you've requested the award, what is going to happen is that it is going to go to an approval queue, and you'll be able to see in your awards section that this award is actually in approval queue. So here you can see all the ones that have been granted and when they were granted. And here you can see that this pod has 3 badges that they've requested and they're still in approval. The key here is the color coding, where you can see the difference of status. You'll also be able to see the members, and like I mentioned, you'll be able to edit and manage the members within your pod. And as you can see here, I'm following I'm following all of them because I'm Carter, so that makes sense. So automatically, as you are assigned to a pod, you will be automatically following people in that pod. You may choose to unfollow if you want, but you may also want to maybe follow other pods. So if you guys are in 2 different pods of PwC and you're interested in seeing what's happening with each other, you can follow each other as pods and as members. All right. KPI section, as I mentioned, under development, but you will see it at some point throughout the closed beta. So I think that should be fun and interesting. And I will show you in a minute how to set your goals, but let me finish because I have to log out and log back in with a different user. You're able to search for any pods or members just by keywords. It will automatically look for both members and pods. So you can look and you can either follow from there automatically, or you can send an award as well from there. You can also view all the pods that are participating in the program. You can order here, you can search and filter. So kind of your basic functionalities. And here you can see unfilter. You can see the ranking. You can see the basic info for the pod, the maturity level, number of members, what client that pod belongs to, the number of awards that that pod has. And obviously all of our pods are new since this is just kicking off. So everyone's at 0. And this is our test pod with 380 points. Again, you can follow or unfollow that pod from here. Same thing applies to members. You can see all of the members that are participating. You can see their job title, which we're in the process of updating. You can see the pods, how many pods they belong to. People can belong to more than one pod if you're partially allocated to 2 pods. How many awards they've received, how many they've sent, how many experience points they have. You can send them an award from here. You can also follow or unfollow them. You can filter as needed as well. The exciting part about this is how you collect your trophies, badges, etc. So in here, I can see all of the badges that are available. You're seeing about, today you're seeing about 60, 70 badges. You will be seeing as of tomorrow about 100, 100-ish badges for pod badges. And you've got, I can't remember how many personal badges, but you have a total of about 40, 50, I want to say, personal badges that you will see as of tomorrow. So what you can see here is the ones that you've not yet collected, the ones that you have. If you are in more than one pod, it may be that you have this badge twice, one for each pod, but here you can see who received it and when. You can also see the detailed information of that badge, and you can request it from this point as well. If it is in the request queue and hasn't been approved, you will see it like this. If you haven't yet had it awarded, then you will see it like this. Same goes for the trophies. Same applies for the personal badges as well, and peer-to-peer badges. As you can see, I can get these as many times as I want. So in this case, Carter has had this badge award 4 or 5 times. I can also send this award to anyone else that I choose. In this case, it's recognizing that I've already selected that award, so all I have to do is type in the receiver and send this badge to Jeff for being an awesome teammate. All right, and I can send that award, and Jeff will have received that award. In order to understand, because like I said, you already have a number of badges here and you will have a lot more to figure out. So in order to help you figure out, so what badges can I achieve, there are a number of filters here that help understand what category they belong to. So if I'm looking for something related to project management, there's a number of badges. If I'm looking for development best practices, there's a number of badges. So this is one way of filtering. Another way of filtering is going to this list view, and initially you've got the entire list just instead of being a grid mode, it's just a list mode. But here I have the option of searching by keyword. So it will look at the name, at the description, and at the tags that that award has. So if I'm looking for continuous deployment, then I can check, and I know now that there are about 10 or 12 badges for continuous deployment. So I can easily read through them and understand a little bit better what badges are out there. should you find that there is something that your pod has achieved and there isn't a badge to represent that, you have here whether encountering a bug or whether encountering a suggestion or something that you would like to have added, you have a form here that you can very quickly fill out and send us your suggestion. We have in the past added badges that teams have requested because you guys are the best source to understand whether we are covering all the bases or whether there are some scenarios that we missed and that really deserve a recognition for that. So feel free to suggest anything that you can't find, or feel free to ask questions as well if you're not sure if a badge applies or it doesn't. I think that covered, I didn't go to the profile section, did I? Okay, so I can also see my own profile or anyone else's for that matter. The difference is that if it's my own, I'll be able to edit. I'll be able to update my avatar, my nickname. I won't be able to change my name and my email. And I'll also be able to add a motto or a phrase that represents me. This nickname you'll be able to see. So if I were to change this, I'll be able to see this nickname. Here is how I'm going to show up to the rest of the world, but everyone will be able to find me by my name as well. I can see which awards I have. This comment section feature that will be available in the feed will also be available in here. And I can also see the awards that I've earned as an individual and the awards that I've earned as part of the pod. So now I can start seeing what my individual contributions are, but also what are my contributions in relationship to that pod. So if I switch to a new pod, I will be able to keep my data from the old pod and start collecting data on the new pod. Or if I belong to two pods, that will also show up here as well. Again, I can send an award from any place that I want. In this case, it's recognizing the receiver instead of the award, so I'll have to select which award I want to send. And as you can see, it's already only looking for individual awards, so I won't be able to mix them up, which are collective and which are individual. Okay. One last thing is you have that feedback option here. You also have it in here, and you also have a link to our toolkit, which is a website that contains a number of interesting things. One is a couple of videos regarding the platform itself, regarding the pod model and what's kind of behind this or what are the drivers behind this. That's interesting context for you. And most importantly, there's a documentation repository. So here you have a playbook, you have a kit on how to get started, you have a presentation should you need this either for your team or for a client or any other information you want to get from that. You've got a user guide for the platform itself. You've got some tips. You've got a repository of KPIs and a very easy template of how you can track them. And you've got what we call the core members template assessment. And should you need anything else, you've got our contact information and again, the feedback link here as well. Okay, any questions? I feel like I've talked nonstop.
Yeah, who's responsible for initially setting up the project? Noticing the pod I'm a member of, it says you have not set any goals yet. I assume that's something that the project manager or something would do. Yeah,
perfect. Great question. So what you are seeing, I'll log in with my user, I think. Hopefully I don't have any goals set on this pod. Yeah. Okay. So now this one does, but let's go to, oh, by the way, I can show you how it looks if you have more than one pod, right? So there you go. You can see the data for both pods, and I believe Rivendell doesn't have, apparently has nothing set at all. Okay, oh, there we go. I was just scrolled up. Great. So what you're seeing is this right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can still earn badges without setting goals. There's nothing stopping you from doing both, right? So you could, let's say you're starting right now and there are certain things that you already have. For example, there's a badge for working with Scrum, and let's say that's your ongoing process. So you may be ready to request that badge regardless, okay? So you can just go right ahead and look for, it might not be available yet, but you can look for that badge, and you can just go ahead and request it right now. That's one thing. For the goal, yeah, the idea is it's available to anyone in the pod right now, because we didn't want to limit the access. But yes, the idea is that your manager, that you guys are going to decide in your planning meeting what it is that you want to target, and you're going to be able to come here and very easily set that goal. Usually it is the manager that does it, but that doesn't mean that someone else can't do it. But the idea is that you're not doing this individually, you're doing this as a pod. So in this case, let's say I'm going to set a tactical goal, and we use the example of unit testing improvement. And I'm going to give it a description so that we're all aligned on why we're doing this, right? So whatever we want to improve. Our coverage of unit testing, because we've been having a lot of bugs. And then I'm going to be able to select the badges that I want to target. You can select up to 3 badges. So 1 to 3 badges is what you can, round robin. There we go. So now I'm going to select those 3 badges, and I'm going to select a time frame that I consider that is reasonable for those 3 badges. So let's say I say 2 weeks, and now I'm able to save this goal. This goal will now update here. And now I can see that I've got, not only do I have this goal, but this goal is also showing up in my maturity path. And it's telling me that I have these 3 badges with 13 days remaining as a tactical goal. Once that time is up, once these 13 days have completed itself, you'll have a button here that will allow you to review that goal. So you'll have just a button that says review, and you'll get a very similar pop-up to what you had, showing you the information that was there, and you'll be able to say, okay, from these 3 badges, I believe that we've achieved, and you'll do this as a team, we've achieved these 2, and you'll click on them and select them, and you'll say maybe this one, actually, we don't believe that we've achieved it in full, so we're going to retarget that badge. So what you're going to do is you're going to close that goal, and these 2 badges will automatically be requested, so they'll be in the approval queue. And this one you'll be able to retarget with the next goal coming up. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay. So kind of related to your question, let me put this in presentation mode so you can see it better. The easiest way to do this, and again, we said that it does not interfere with any process that you have. So we don't expect you to change any process that you're doing, except one best practice, which is measuring KPIs if you're not doing that, or if you are, making sure that those KPIs are comprehensive and meaningful and adding value to both you and your client. But the easiest way to do this is to just look at what your regular ceremonies or regular processes. So regardless of how you're calling it and what the cadence is, most of us on our projects are doing some sort of planning. We're doing some sort of iteration. We're doing some sort of, whether it's daily or not, but some sort of stand-up or touch point, and we're doing some sort of retrospective. So if you are able to include game of pods, let's say in your planning, you take 5 minutes to say, okay, what is our goal for the sprint? Our goal is X. Great. What badges do we have that target that? And you select those badges and set that goal. That's it. That's 5 minutes of your planning. At the end of your iteration in your retrospective, you decide as a team whether you believe you've achieved that goal or you haven't. And again, it's another 2 minutes to decide and to trigger or close that goal and trigger those badges. That is one way to keep being proactive about the best practices that you want to apply, about the targets that you want to achieve, and using Game of Pods as a vehicle for that. In terms of the personal badges and peer-to-peer badges, a very easy way to do this is throughout the sprint. Anything that you see that, let's go back. Anything that you see that where someone is demonstrating those core values in their actions, taking a task on that maybe no one else wants to do, or that's a little bit more challenging, helping out with things like mentoring someone or interviewing for new members or helping onboard new members. Those are great opportunities for some of those individual badges. The stand-up is another great opportunity for those individual badges. Someone that helped unblock me, someone that sat down and problem solved with me. Those are great opportunities to say, thank you, I appreciate it, this is great, great teamwork, let's keep this up. So you've got, every day you have opportunities to be able to use those individual badges. There's another practice that a lot of our teams are doing, which is in the retrospectives, they are included this practice of kind of the thank you space, where everyone says thank you to someone else for something that they did in that sprint, and they do that through a badge that they award. So there's, again, a number of opportunities to just include this seamlessly into your daily process without having to change much. And you do this for a couple of weeks, and it'll become very easily and very quickly a habit, as we've seen with other teams. If you do get stuck, or at any point you're feeling like this is overhead, or you're not sure how to do this, reach out. We always have suggestions, and we've seen teams implement this in various different ways. Okay, let's talk about expectations. What you can expect from us. So these onboarding sessions, obviously, you should have obviously access to the tool and access to all our information. That repository that I showed you, that is being updated constantly. So for example, if you are making suggestions, or when we hear specific questions in these sessions, there's a Q&A section, or an FAQ section in the document, so we go and update that. So as we're hearing feedback, and as we're seeing maybe where people are requiring more support, we're updating that constantly. So that's always an interesting repository to go and check, and you will find that there is a lot of information in those documents. We can also help you if you feel that you're stuck on your maturity path and you're not being able to make any progress. Our goal is to get you to progress as much as possible. Our goal is for you to earn as many badges as you can, because it means you are applying best practices and you are growing. So if you are getting stuck, just reach out to us. We will help guide you along the way. Any questions that you have, please reach out. We're happy to help and to have as many conversations as needed. Since you are participating in this beta program, we do have some expectations from you as well. The first one is to fully understand and embrace the pod model and game of pods. So I'll ask that you do look at the information that we have and that we provide, and make sure you understand what's in there. And if you do have questions, reach out. Again, we can have as many conversations as needed, but please make sure that you get familiar with the pod model and with Game of Pods. Obviously, participating requires proactive participation. So if you do find yourself that you log in once and you never log in again, like you did with Recognize, please give us a shout, because that is not the scenario that we are looking for. Recognizing other pod members. So again, you can be requesting badges for your pod, or you can be recognizing other team members, or even other members that are participating in the program if you feel like they've deserved your recognition. The KPIs, we said they're at the core of the pod model. So have a chat with your team, with your managers, and figure out, are you on board with what you're tracking? Were those KPIs just defined by the client and you had no say in them? Did your manager arbitrarily define them. We'll make sure that you're looking at them as a team and that they're making sense and adding value to you and to your client. Incorporate gamifiers into your daily process. That's the easiest way to do this. And like I mentioned before, provide feedback and suggestions. That is what this beta program is for, is to collect all that feedback and continue to shape this. We will continue developing. There are 2 teams that are developing in parallel, and we're spinning off a new pod as well. So there is a lot of growth expected. The 2 current pods that we have will continue putting out features into what you are currently using. The new pod is going to start working on that more individual or personal journey for the tool. So that will take a little bit of time before you see something in that realm. But there are big expectations and visibility into this tool, into the program, and into the accounts that are participating as well. Any help that you need, you have 2 mechanisms. One is, or the first stop is that repository of information. Don't underestimate it. There is a lot of information, and you'll find clarity on a lot of things. If that still is not enough, or if you're blocked with something, our email is podification@softvision.com. On that email, you will find a few people responding to you. There are more people behind the scenes, but mostly you'll hear from these people. So Tomas is our operations lead. If you're stuck with a user or things, I can't access a tool or things like that, Tomas will be the first to respond and to resolve that for you. Any communications or emails or sessions or communications in workplace, for example, that you're receiving, Alejandra is going to be behind that, and Melissa and I are going to be guiding you and coaching you and helping you progress along your maturity path. Whew. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Open for questions, suggestions, first impressions.
I guess just, is there anywhere we can check what reports have already been filed or anything like that, or do we just submit it through the form?
That's an awesome question. Yes, we were actually talking about this morning with the team. It's not yet up and running, but we will be having kind of a direct view into a filtered version of our JIRA. I say filtered because you don't want to see maybe 200 issues, but definitely being able to see live the status of the key issues that the team is working on. So not up and running yet, but I'm hoping I can set that up for next week. And yes, I do want you to have visibility into what has already been filed. For the time being, anything that you find, just send it out. We'll do the job of filtering and making sure there are no duplicates, and we'll let you know if we're putting that in our backlog.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Any first impressions for those who logged in to recognize and log straight back out?
Yeah, it looks looks a lot better. Well, everything appears to be joined up and logical views of your data, whereas recognize was little silos that did not, come together as obviously. So yeah, it's definitely a lot more intuitive.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good first impression. Hopefully we'll keep you in there for a bit longer than recognize. Like I said, we have a long backlog. We have about leaving it in an agile way and with capacity to add anything that comes up in terms of feedback. But we do have a high level roadmap of at least a year of things to develop. So there's a lot of expectation on the tool, a lot of excitement. And your feedback throughout this beta program is going to help us either validate or change those high-level features and make sure that we're driving things in the right direction. So this is just the first initial round, almost, if you want, kind of MVP type features. And we're just going to continue to grow. So anything that you find and that you think, even if it's that you think it's super out there, anything that you say, hey, it would be cool to have this, just throw it our way, because again, we have a long list with backlog, and we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. All right. I see that some people joined a little bit later after we started. Hopefully you were able to catch most of the presentation. If there are no other questions, then I think we're good. But again, if you do have questions, don't be shy.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to being in contact through this closed beta. All right.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.